Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of SUGTalks. I'm Craig Dale, your host, and together with our special guests, we'll take a deep dive into the topics, challenges, and opportunities facing SAP users today. Please make sure you subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss another episode. I'm delighted to be joined today by Simon Nichols, founder and director of Wellbeing at Thrive, a mental health and wellbeing company, and Beth Fountain, who heads up the marketing at the UK and Ireland SAP User Group, and as such, this podcast. And we're going to discuss post-lockdown mental health. Now, just before we get on to our main subject, and perhaps an insight into my mental health to think of this, but many years ago, I was likened to Dale Winton of supermarket sweep fame. Now, Beth, I'm not even sure whether you remember Dale Winton, but may he rest in peace. And I wondered, have either of you ever been told you look like someone famous, and who was it? Start with you, Beth.
No, I haven't, but, well, my auntie is the only person that's ever said that, and she said that I remind her of, is it Rachel Riley from Countdown? I personally don't see it, but every time I see her, she's like, all I see is Rachel in you. But nobody else has ever said that to me, and I can't see it, so
Oh, well, when we're in the office, we start asking for vowels, consonants, and put numbers on boards and things. We'll have to remember that. Simon?
So the one that I get most, and this completely contrasts to Beth, I've got three at least. The one that I get likened to most is Nick Knowles. And
I see that.
Thank you. And what seems to happen is Nick, whenever I grow out my beard, he seems to grow his beard out. When I get long hair, he gets long hair. So what seems to happen is, no matter what, even when I go and get my hair cut, and the next time I see DIY SOS, he's had his hair cut. It's like we're brothers from another mother. The one that I got recently, actually, which was quite nice, was, and I'm not sure if it was my facial features or my mannerisms, but I got told Alan Rickman, which is quite nice. I am a little bit sarcastic, so I can completely agree with his. But my best one, and I'm saving this to last because, okay, I was a lot younger, and yes, it was at a wedding reception, and yes, the person who was saying this had quite a bit of wine. But I will live off the day that someone walked up to me and said, "You remind me of Dave Grohl of the Foo Fighters." I kid you not, and I will take that one. I could be like Dave Grohl.
Well, I gave you my Dale Winton, and you just raised the bar to whole other levels between the two of you, didn't you? So I'll wait for the beep, and then I'll run around with my trolley just to try and catch up with you both. Well, thank you for that. And maybe Nick, somebody's told him that he looks like you, so he monitors what you're doing and follows along that line, Simon.
I am hopeful of that one day we will meet in person, because that's the other thing, is we've never been in the same place at the same time, so who knows?
Yeah, has anyone seen you in the same room together? Because
not at all. Mind you, Craig, you will be pleased to know that not only do I remember Dale Winton, but quite often in my mental health training, I do use the terms "go wild in the aisles." So, for anyone who remembers that wonderful program,
I'll pick up my box of Cheerios and we'll move on. And back to that, it has been a strange year, which I'm sure has been unique to us all, and we've been supporting our members throughout this time, and podcast listeners with non-SAP related wellbeing sessions, which you, Simon, have been a very valued guest on nearly all of them, and thank you for that. And as we move towards a more positive future now, with more and more of society opening back up, lockdown restrictions easing, and some form of normality returning, I'm sure it also brings with it a whole host of other challenges to us all. One of the things that we did was we surveyed our members earlier this week and asked how they were feeling about it all. Beth, what were the key words and feelings that kind of came through from those responses?
Yeah, well, as you can probably guess, there was like two sides to the responses that we got. So obviously there was the side where anxious, worried, nervous was coming up quite a lot. But then we had a lot of people saying that they're happy, relieved, and can't wait to get back to normal. So I think it's like quite a contrast in the two. There's nobody like in the middle, as you would say.
Two sides of the fence, as you said there. So any comments from you on that, Simon?
Yeah, and it's really, as you say, expected, because we often, in everything that we've seen, Marmite, love or hate it, Brexit, for it, against it, we are a nation of decision makers in terms of when we have a thought process, it's sometimes contra to other people's thought, Labour, Conservative, Republicans, Democrats. So when we start to see people coming back out of whatever it is that we've been through for the last couple of years, or it feels like a couple of years, 18 months, people will be looking to embrace life again. And we saw this more prevalent with huggers. So individuals who love hugs, I'm one of them. I'll hug as many people as possible, and with their permission, of course. But it's for those people, it's like, I can hug again. It's fantastic. But at the same time, there's been the part of society that doesn't like hugs, that actually welcomed some of the lockdown measures, who are saying, well, actually, do you know what? I wish it would stay just a little bit longer. I'd like it to continue. And you did say about that change in mood as well, because the mentalhealth.org.uk published a series of waves of sentiment of individuals coming through the lockdown and coming out of it, and maybe we can put that link to their findings in the podcast notes, because what they've talked about now is how hopeful that we are as a nation, because when they did the survey in the 14th of March 2020, only 14% of us felt hopeful, which is actually quite a low percentage, because we were in the middle or the start of this thing that we weren't sure that was going on. And actually, now they've run the study again in February 2021, and they're now 30% of us are hopeful. Now, we haven't seen the next wave that they're releasing yet, but obviously as we start to think about May and we're exiting out of that, we can only expect that figure to go up. So I think as a nation, we're starting to be hopeful that something will change. But also some people are thinking, I'm hopeful that some of it sticks. I want to be hybrid working. I don't want everywhere to open up as quickly as possible. And we're going to start to see more and more of that. I love it. I don't love it as we go forward, I think.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting that, and back to that hugging piece, mm-hmm. And the meme that was shared. Obviously from the 17th of May in the UK, we were allowed to hug our loved ones and close friends and family, and lots of people sharing that meme. Just because the government has said, please beware, this does not apply to me. I don't hug.
Well, and it's created a different... Yeah, and it's quite a weird one, isn't it?
Keep 2 meters whether there's COVID or not.
We're seeing people shy away, as you go. And I've noticed this as well. And I'll meet a group of people, maybe 5 or 6 people, and one person will put their hand forward to have their hand shaked, whereas the other 5 will put their hands in their pockets. And you just think, how are we going to communicate that? How is that? Please don't hug me. I mean, before we just used to sort of back away, but now we might want to really say, I don't want you in my space because of my thoughts and feelings and my vulnerability. And it's quite a strange scenario for people to be in, who are used to, as you know, Craig, and in the IT world, in the SAP world, we're all used to handshakes. We're used to physical communication, and it's going to be quite a strange coming back to work because people are going to be shying away from that.
It's almost like we have to build a whole new etiquette of meeting and greeting, and how is there a way that we can identify that in somebody, or is there a polite way perhaps of communicating that, do you think?
Well, I think that's going to have to be a cumulative effort, I think, on the part of organisations to not quite go down the badge route. Green for hugs, yellow for handshakes, red for "don't come near me," as Beth said there. But I think we're going to learn a style. We're going to learn an etiquette, as you said, and I think it's going to come. If you walk up to someone and someone's got their hands in their pockets, where you would normally shake hands, I think we're going to see that. I've noticed less and less elbows. There's a few fist bumps coming in, and I do wonder if we're going to see more business bumps. I don't know if that's going to be the case, because with that you only get a minimum amount of interaction. But yeah, I don't know who the governing body is going to be of that. It'd be lovely if someone like SAP was to put out some guidelines of how to meet and greet people at Clockhouse Place. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. Quite interesting, isn't it? Looking at the fist bumps, elbow bumps, and let's hope there's not that many Glaswegian kisses. And
someone did kick me once, and that was their form of greeting. Yeah, they actually put their foot out, and I'm like, what's going on? And I didn't put my foot out, and he just sort of whacked into me. But that was his foot greeting. But Craig, you and I guess, have got to look at the. I'm just going to call it the elephant in the room. I don't want to say that at all. But Beth is considerably younger than you and I, and I mean, I guess the question from my no problem, Craig. Beth, I guess from my side, is it has that interaction, let's say in the younger generation, did that ever disappear?
Yeah, I think, well, for me personally, I could feel my social skills getting worse and worse as the lockdown went on. And then when it was coming to seeing people again, when I was going for walks with my friends and things, I even felt awkward then with people that I've been friends with for years. And I think now that we're back with the hybrid working and things like that, it does feel a little bit more normal. But like, I went to my friend's house the other day because it was her birthday and I'd got her a gift. And she was like, "Can I give you a hug?" And it was the first time I'd hugged somebody. But after I'd bit the bullet, I felt fine about it. But I was a bit like, oh, I don't want to do this. But yeah, I think for me personally, it was quite hard, especially in the first lockdown, because it was the first time that anything like that had really happened to me. A lot of my friends either live with their partners or have brothers and sisters. And it was just me and my mum and dad. So I think for me, it was really hard. I actually moved in with my sister at one point because I thought I want somebody that's similar to my age to interact with so that I don't just become this social shell, I guess. And that really helped. But yeah, I'm so glad things are going back to normal, personally.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Beth. But it is interesting, though, isn't it, that things changed so rapidly last year, and we all had to adapt. And it's a case that we did have to adapt, and it affects people in so many different ways. And then you get into that routine. We've been in and out and locked down so many times, you lose count and you don't know which way is up. And then all of a sudden we're coming back to normal, and like you said there, Beth, that first hug, it was like, oh, how do I go about this? But then it's like those tentative steps, isn't it? And making that step and going forward positively. So for those people, perhaps the question for you, Simon, those people perhaps who are very nervous, very anxious about this, like that first hug or that first social engagement, what can we do if we feel that way to help ourselves feel more positive, perhaps, going forward?
Well, as we've always discussed on these podcasts and in the various webinars we've done, the way that we think affects the way that we feel. The way that we think and feel affects our behaviours. So, in order for us to feel safe, we have to think safe. We have to think that it's going to be okay. Now, a lot of people are not feeling safe still. A lot of people are vulnerable, even with the vaccinations, even with and we've seen the contact rates have gone down, and we've been seeing, and I don't know if anyone is even sort of keeping up with some of the COVID stats, but the death rates are virtually non-existent now. I mean, it's still very sad for those individuals, but we're talking less than 10 deaths in the UK at least from around this. But we've still got globalization, so we still know what's going on in India. We still know what's going on in South America, and for a lot of individuals probably listening to this podcast as well, still have friends and family. So even though the restrictions are lifting and the pubs are opening and we're going back to a level of define your new normal, what we've still got to remember is people's thoughts and feelings, which means they're going to be thinking about other people. They're going to be thinking about their own safety. So when we sort of, especially if you're going back into the hybrid working, which means that actually an organisation has asked you to come back into the office, what we've got to realise is, are we forcing that person to come back? Have we made adequate investigation into whether or not that person is ready to come back? What we always saw at the beginning of this was people who were vulnerable, who were shielding, they made their own decisions about that in terms of, actually, I'm not going to go out now, and they put provisions in place. Now that we've been told that actually shielding isn't needed anymore, well, that's fine, but that's not how I feel. And my thoughts and feelings are going to always be the centre of everything that I do. That's how I'm going to behave. So when we start to think about how people like that, well, if you are worried about going back into work, if you are scared about going back onto the train, talk to your employer, talk to your HR team, talk to anybody within the business who has a responsibility for the well-being of the staff, because we're not all in the same boat. And I think we discussed this before, Craig, didn't we? We've just come through a storm. For a lot of us, we're sitting pretty in our yachts and our cruise liners because we survived the storm in relative comfort and ease. Quite a few people are just literally washed up on the beach, castaways, and actually they've got to now put their life together and try and get back out into society. And I think we as society, maybe vaccinated, maybe feeling safe about going back into the world, just spare a thought for our friends, our work colleagues, people that don't feel as safe as we do, and to maybe, at least for the next year or so, make allowances. Put yourself in their space, in their place. What are they thinking about? Rather than just say, oh, well, I'm okay, so you must be okay. Because we all know that we're coming at this from different places.
The UK and Ireland SAP User Group is a not-for-profit membership organisation designed to help you to get the very best out of your SAP investments and make your job easier. Our focus is bringing the whole SAP community together so our members can learn, network and collaborate to improve their organisation, providing an independent channel through which to influence SAP. For more information and a special offer for our podcast listeners, please visit sapusers.org/pod or email support@sapusers.org. Enjoy the rest of the pod.
It's like almost flipping it on its head, wasn't it? Because last year what we were contending with was, because almost everybody who was able to went to a work from home environment, we were thinking about the support for those that were struggling working from home. That really, and now we're returning to kind of some form of normality. We have to think about those people coming out of it, and it's just interesting challenges all round on both sides.
It is, and I think what's going to be most difficult is for those individuals who maybe lack that empathy and are just unable to see things from another person's point of view. And it's no fault of their own. You know, we all have our own lived experiences. We all have our own views on life. But we're going to see, I fear, we're going to see that, the management team being told by senior management, actually, we've got to get everyone back in the office. We've got to, move the UK economy back up. But we're going to do this potentially with human casualties. And I don't just mean physical casualties in what we've been experienced with COVID, but we're going to actually mean that those individuals are not going to choose to work for that company anymore. I think we're going to see, which is going to be interesting to watch, because actually, unfortunately, we're starting to see already the effects of furlough, redundancy, job losses. And yet actually we might see that further, because people are going to go, I cannot work for you anymore. And therefore, I'm going to move with my feet. Now, we know the Chancellor said, actually, if you don't open up the offices, people might leave your businesses. Well, actually, if you're looking to go into a job that has an office, there'll probably be lots of organisations who can do that. But it's those organisations that are going to offer flexible working. And in some cases, it's okay. You don't need to come back into the office. I think are going to be the more successful as we move out of this, whatever this has been.
Yeah, certainly, the balance has to be struck somewhere. You talk about those businesses, and there's businesses that, feel that they need people in. I think I was having a conversation yesterday, actually, and talking about a lady I was talking to, two daughters, one in City of London, and she's virtually just working from home into the office once a week. The other one works for Goldman Sachs, and head of Goldman Sachs was working from home as an abomination, allegedly, and they're back in fully everything, and because it doesn't believe in working from home. And I suppose it's striking that right balance between the business and personal needs of the employees to ensure that the business is still around and able to provide willing employment for people, but also to ensure the well-being of the staff involved as well. And striking that balance is a difficult line.
It is, and I guess from and you guys, I know I've been sort of I've spoken to Beth and spoken to Matt. You've struck that happy balance, haven't you? There's some working from home, and there's office days when you need to.
Well, and no one's left yet, so.
You're doing well. We should ask Beth this. Actually, it's and well, actually, Beth, I guess in that vein, is it working for you? Is that hybrid working for you as a especially someone in the event and marketing space where you live off collaboration, don't you?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. Before lockdown, I couldn't have imagined working from home, but now, when we were coming out of lockdown, I couldn't have imagined coming back. And I do think it's nice to have that balance of being able to go in, but also working from home as well. It's like we've proved that we can work from home, and I think the nation has. So it shouldn't be a rush to everyone get back in. Like, yes, we've got the vaccine, but like you say, people aren't ready mentally to get back. But yeah, for me, I'm really enjoying the hybrid side of it. It's good to be back with everybody, socialising.
I know that's the thing I really enjoy about it also. I mean, I'll admit I struggled working from home to begin with. We talked about it on earlier pod about separating work and home life was a challenge at first. I got over that. And then when we were coming back to, starting to transition back to the office more, it was like, oh, well, if I want to do that, like I normally I go for a walk on a morning, I'm going to have to either get up earlier or not go for a walk. And it's like, it's a whole change. You get used to something and then you have to change. And it's really weird. Like I went on my first business trip in quite a while last week, and that was odd. I had a horrid night's sleep in the hotel. It was just really weird. But then kind of we did it again this week with a few from the office. It felt a bit more, because I wasn't traveling on my own, it felt better. And yeah, that worked a lot better for me. And we were talking just before we came on about visiting a restaurant, and visiting a restaurant for the first time. That was really nice. It is just, I think it's just nice, and like you said there, Beth, socializing. That I've really missed that.
Yeah, I think different things as well can be different for different people, because for me as well, I don't have a specific work space at home, so I found that quite difficult. My mum is working from home as well, and she's got like the office, so I'm just on the dining room table, and I know that's better than what some people have, but when things are going on around you, it's not like a specific place, and then I've got to tidy up at the end of every day. Like, it doesn't feel like my workspace, so that was difficult for me, but like you say, you just get used to it. So I think different things for different people like contributes to whether they want to be at home or in the office.
It's going to be that variety and that individual decisions where people can make those individual decisions, because what we're also going to see is a changing focus on those business meetings you were talking about, Craig, because when organisations look back, and they look back over 2020 spend on training, and they look over 2020 spend on business trips, and some organisations are going to look down and they're going to go, that was £4 million. We saved £4 million on travel, and our business still continued. It still existed. Now, I know lots of people talk about that having that human contact, especially in sales, very important in sales. But we've seen that life can go on. And I think what we'll start to see is blended training, blended learning. Where we had to go and do mandatory training and we stayed overnight in London, they're going to go, well, no, actually, let's just do it over Zoom. Let's just do it over Teams. And we're going to, I think as well, Craig, I don't know your views on this, but I think we're going to see a reduction in popping over to the Paris office or popping over to Stockholm to have a one-day meeting to come back, when organisations will say, well, do you know what, that's going to cost us £3,000. And you can now do that conversation in 2 hours and then get 8 hours extra work done as well. I don't know if your thought on European travel is going to change.
I think that there's certainly possibilities there, and I think that that bottom line viewpoint is certainly a challenge. I do feel in time it will probably come back, maybe not full circle, but at least 3/4 circle, because in my mind, face-to-face interaction is just so much more powerful than doing it on a video call. Yes, you can talk. Yes, you can see each other, but there are bits of body language you miss, little nuances in facial expression that you lose through the camera. And we've just had our conference planning workshop. As our conference at the end of November is going to run face to face this year, so we're planning avidly with the venue and everybody to make sure it's safe. But we've been doing all of those calls on Zoom or Teams or whatever. And we just had a sit down this week, a 4-hour sit down meeting, and it was just so nice. I don't know what you feel, Beth, but for me, it was just so nice. We were able to engage properly. We were able to see the team again, and we haven't seen in person for like 15 months. And we got so much more done in that face-to-face environment than you would probably need maybe 3 Teams meetings or something to cover it. So I think it's that balance. Again, it's back to the balance of what works, and how you can make it work best for you and your business and your people.
think as well we need to, and great that you mentioned the Sugfest, which I'm so looking forward to. Is that the things that people have missed, the things that we went without for a year. I think those sort of things, once they start coming back into the calendar, are actually going to be very well attended. I know Beth and I had a conversation about Beth getting some tickets. I think it was for Leeds and Reading, which unfortunately, have you got any yet, Beth? Or are you still?
No, I'm still not.
No, oh, so
Sold
I
out.
keep opening that wound every time I speak to Beth. Because just how fast that sold out, and how you'd never be able to recreate that over a platform. So I do think as we start moving into next year, and what's been really interesting for me at least is because of the globalization of what happened with this pandemic and the focus that it had, and our energy and our effort and thoughts that have gone into all of this, is, actually when we look back at it, and it's very easy for me and Craig to say, it was only 18 months, it was only 2 years, but we're a little bit older than Beth. So actually 2 years of our life is not the same as 2 years of someone who's 20 or 21, because actually that's a huge formative part of their life that they missed out on. And you extrapolate that down to a 6-year-old, and that's a third of their life that's gone, and all of those experiences that people have lost out on. So I think you're absolutely right there, Craig. I think certain areas, depending on people's vulnerability again, are going to be almost oversubscribed. And I'm certainly hoping that's the case of the November conference, is that a lot of people want to come to it, want to be there. Yes, we need to do it in a safe way, but we also need to be aware that people are craving out for this. So I do think, yeah, you're right. I think we will see a return of some description to that travel. But I just think that companies now are going to work a bit smarter. And for those conferences that have 80% 80% in person with a 20% online version as well. I think we might start seeing hybrid conferences being very successful. And especially with some of the technology that's coming out now, being able to see the keynote live, and feel like you're in there, but really you're keeping your own vulnerability at bay, but you can still feel like you can join in. I think that's really where we're going to see a move in the future, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right there, and it's certainly something that we're looking at for the future, as it will form quite a big part of that. And thanks again for mentioning how old we're getting. I really appreciate that. I might come out of this feeling depressed myself, but anyway, the time's flown by, and we've talked through different kind of thoughts and feelings: nervous, anxious, happy, excited, relieved, and how we can work through them together on both sides with open communication, by communicating your feelings so people know and people can help, by treating each other and thinking about others' feelings, empathizing with people. And that openness, communication and empathy can help us work together as we all work through this. Are there any just final points from either of you, perhaps, before we wrap up our conversation?
I'll let Beth go first, as ladies and youth first, obviously.
I actually did see one of the answers on the survey we did was, I hope things aren't coming out too soon. I hope we aren't unlocking too soon. I was just wondering what you two thought about that, because I think that is probably high on people's worries list.
Yeah, I think there's that side, and there's also the other side of people thinking it's too slow.
Yeah.
The cases are through the floor. We talked earlier about, obviously, death's been almost at nothing now, and the hospital admissions been really low, and also been because of the vaccination program, if you like, the illnesses are not as severe. And I just feel, I mean, I wouldn't want Boris's job, no matter what everybody's saying. He just does get kicked from pillar to post, and whoever is leading the country was probably going to be in the same situation. And whichever way you turn, there's talk at the moment: will everything be lifted on the 21st or not? Obviously, the media seem to love jumping on the negative side of things. So whichever way we go here, he's going to get kicked, because there's the ones who will say, no, it's too soon, and the others saying, we're doing this to save the NHS, and the NHS is no longer under pressure and not looking like coming under pressure at this point. So I think there's two sides to that, and those, I think, unlocking too soon certainly is again, and that's also, I think, links to what we were talking about, those that don't want to come out of lockdown just yet. And I think, again, it probably, that communication, if people are feeling that way, they do need to communicate with those around them, with employers, with friends, with family, so everybody can understand and help and work with them through the process. That's my view, Simon.
Yeah, and it's what's interesting to note as well is the longer, because we focused on keeping everyone alive, which was absolutely what we needed to focus on at that time, supporting the elderly, supporting the vulnerable, supporting the critically vulnerable. But what we have to also bear in mind is that when we start to look at the anxiety levels, so anxiety levels were running at 62 to 70% in March 2020. That's the percentage of the population that were feeling over anxious, and that actually dropped down to 42% in February. But when we start to see where the depression doubled, diagnosable depression doubled in 2020 from 5 million people in 2019 to 10.5 million people in 2020. We haven't yet had the figures out for 2021 yet, but we're starting to see a lot of people be adversely affected by the causation of COVID, i.e. the thoughts and the feelings, the mental health side of things. So yes, there is a danger of unlocking too soon, because we could plunge that thought process back into another lockdown. However, there are people right now are suffering from loneliness, from social deprivation in terms of not being able to connect with people, from that longing to connect with families, to see babies that have been born during lockdown that they haven't seen. So all of this mental anguish is actually starting to take its toll as well. So I think we're doing it slowly. I think we're doing it right. And again, those people that think it is too slow, well, you'll have your own thoughts and you'll react to this in your own way, which means you might still stay working from home wherever possible. And that's absolutely fine, because it's okay to not be okay, as long as you feel safe doing what you're doing. The problem is we can't control everybody. We can't make decisions based on whether people wear masks or anything. So we have to actually look after ourselves and our own well-being first. And if we feel safe, and we feel safe to go and do things, go to the pub, then that's absolutely fine. But if we don't, we can make that decision as well.
So true. And, back to, I think, what you said earlier, Simon, the way we think affects the way we feel, and trying to think positive, to be positive.
It is. Well, you said it beginning as well, Craig, is, this negative stuff, because we know we're drawn to negativity 5 times more than we're driven to positivity. So every time you have that initial Zoom call, ask everyone what great thing has happened to them today. What have they done that's amazing this morning? And you start to build that positivity up. Positivity increases productivity, but positivity increases our emotional stability, and we just need that more than anything now. I think I sound a bit like Boris there, but we need emotional stability. We need to feel safe. And
we had an 11s call for our volunteers on a weekly basis, just to keep in touch, because we felt that engagement, and there was some elements, some people, if you like, struggling. And one of the volunteers, Martin, kind of brought in peak of the week. So talk about your peak of the week to get that up there. So that relates quite nicely to what you said there. Well, look, we're up and over our time now, but Beth, Simon, thank you so much for your time, your insights, and thank you all for listening. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and found it valuable. If you would like further information on the user group and our wellbeing sessions, then please do visit sapusers.org or follow us on any of the main social media platforms. And until the next time, stay safe, stay well, and keep washing your hands.